Have you ever wondered what would happen if the whole world began to speak all at once? If every voice, every thought could be heard in a single moment? The prophet Isaiah spoke of such a time, when the earth would hear one voice. For centuries, that sounded like a poetic mystery. But what if that time is now? What if Isaiah's vision was a glimpse of our digital age? The silence he once knew, the silence of reflection and prayer, is gone. Today, the world never stops talking. Billions of words fly across our screens every second. The internet, social media, AI, they've created a single, global voice that never sleeps. But as we all speak, have we forgotten how to listen? The constant noise can be seductive, but it leaves us feeling empty. We scroll, we post, we shout, but the sacred silence that once connected us to something deeper is lost. It's almost impossible to imagine how a prophet from a world of scrolls and stone walls could describe something so close to our reality. The prophet Isaiah wrote, "The earth shall hear one voice." For generations, scholars debated what he meant. Was it a divine call? Or was it something far more human? Think about it. When Isaiah spoke, communication was fragile, limited to parchment and word of mouth. Yet, in one line, he captured an age where every thought and opinion travels across oceans in an instant. This isn't just about technology. It's about the spiritual noise that grows when truth and falsehood share the same frequency. We've mistaken connection for understanding and communication for communion. Isaiah's yes message invites us to look at what we've built, a world where silence is feared and thought is replaced by reaction. Maybe he'd remind us that the loudest voices aren't always the ones carrying truth. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button for more content that makes you think. He wasn't warning us to fear progress. He was calling us to recognize the cost of it. Every invention changes not only the way we live, but the way we think, the way we believe. The one voice he foresaw was not just communication, it was transformation. Humanity's collective decision to replace silence with constant sound and reflection with information. It's the moment where knowledge expands, but wisdom shrinks, where revelation is replaced by repetition. Think about it. The same prophecy that once seemed divine now describes the heartbeat of our civilization. One global network, one voice, one endless stream of words flowing from one mind to another, erasing distance but not division. It's as if the verse itself woke up, breathing through every signal, every screen, every whisper that passes from one human soul to another. The earth has finally heard one voice. But what kind of voice have we created? Is it a voice of awakening or of distraction? Maybe Isaiah wasn't describing the perfection of communication, but its collapse. The end of true dialogue replaced by echoes. Because when everyone speaks at once, meaning dissolves. The prophecy was never about words, it was about awareness. About realizing that what we build on the outside eventually mirrors what we've lost on the inside. And perhaps that's where his message becomes personal. The one voice isn't just the sound of the world. It is the reflection of our own choices, our search for connection, our fear of being unheard. Isaiah's verse remains like a mirror in motion, showing us not just what we've become, but what we might still recover, if we remember how to listen. There's a reason Isaiah's words still haunt us, because they were never meant to be understood in just one way. Every prophecy carries two layers, the divine and the human, the sacred and the worldly. The same vision that spoke of light could also reveal shadow. When Isaiah said that the earth shall hear one voice, some believed he was speaking of the gospel spreading to every nation, the moment when the word of God would cross borders and reach hearts in every language. And maybe that was true. Maybe he saw the rise of a world where faith would no longer be confined by geography or tongue. But what if, intertwined with that divine vision, there was something else, something born not from heaven, but from human hands, a voice so vast, so constant, that it began to drown out the very silence from which truth once spoke. That's the paradox of prophecy. It mirrors both what God intends and what mankind creates. Today, we live inside the echo of that prophecy. The one voice that spans the earth isn't just spiritual anymore, it's digital. It's the hum of data, the rhythm of scrolling screens, the endless stream of thoughts and images that never stops flowing. Humanity has crafted its own voice, a mechanical heartbeat that pulses across the planet, faster than wind, deeper than oceans, louder than reason. It's everywhere, speaking through millions of faces, algorithms, and devices, all repeating the same unending chorus. Listen to me. Look at me. Believe me. There's power in that voice, a power that connects, but also consumes. We've built systems that promise unity but deliver noise, platforms that promise truth but sell illusion. The divine voice calls for reflection. The human one demands reaction. One brings peace, the other addiction. It's the eternal tension between revelation and repetition, between truth and trend. And the most fascinating part is how similar they seem. Both speak to the heart, both move people to act. But only one transforms. You can feel that difference in your own life. When a message touches your spirit, it quiets something inside you. It feels like understanding, like alignment. But the voice of the world does the opposite. It stirs restlessness, comparison, desire. It convinces you that you're missing something, even when you have everything. That's the hidden cost of this new kind of connection. We traded silence for constant awareness, but somewhere along the way, awareness became anxiety. And maybe that's what Isaiah saw. Not just a world united by sound, but a humanity divided by attention. It is not just about faith or technology. It is about what voice we choose to follow. The divine voice whispers truth in stillness. The human one screams opinions in chaos. One teaches patience, the other feeds urgency. And yet, both exist side by side, shaping the same generation. That's what makes this era so complex and so revealing. We stand between two revelations, the one that uplifts and the one that distracts. Both claim to enlighten, but only one leads to transformation. Isaiah's prophecy was never simply about the future, it was about perception. He didn't just describe what would happen, he described how we would see it. Every age interprets his words differently, filtered through its own desires and fears. Ours just happens to be the first to experience it in real time. The world has never been more connected, but never more disconnected from what truly matters. It's as if the more we speak, the less we understand. And still, beneath all the noise, that divine whisper remains, waiting to be heard again. The challenge isn't to silence the world, but to learn how to listen differently, to recognize the truth hidden in the static. Because somewhere between the divine voice and the human one, there's a fragile line, and crossing it changes everything. And maybe, just maybe, that S where Isaiah's vision begins to reveal its deeper meaning, not in the words themselves, but in the space between them, where silence used to live. Once, silence was sacred. It wasn't just the absence of sound. It was a space where the soul could breathe, where thought met eternity, and where the divine could whisper without interruption. But that silence is gone now. The modern world has buried it beneath a mountain of noise, the constant hum of conversation, information, and opinion that fills every waking second. We've built cities that never sleep, devices that never turn off, and minds that never stop spinning. Every second, billions of voices pour into the digital void, each one demanding to be heard, each one echoing into a space that feels infinite but is strangely hollow. And the world listens, not because it wants to, but because it has forgotten how not to. What once felt like progress now feels like saturation. Humanity mistook movement for meaning, connection for communion. We created machines that could replicate the sound of our voices, and then we handed them the responsibility of speaking for us. It's as if, in our pursuit of communication, we accidentally silenced the very part of us that understood what was worth saying. The death of silence wasn't a tragedy of technology. It was the fulfillment of a warning. Isaiah foresaw a time when the world would be so full of words that truth itself would struggle to find a place to rest. That time has arrived. We live in an era where silence feels unnatural, even threatening. The moment stillness enters a room, we rush to fill it, with music, with scrolling, with distraction. But silence used to be the language of revelation. It was where people found clarity, made decisions, and met the unseen. In that quiet, prophets heard the voice of God. Now, that same quiet feels like a void to escape. Our collective mindset shifted, from seeking understanding to seeking noise. And the irony is painful. We've never spoken more, yet we've never felt less heard. The impact of this transformation is deeper than we realize. Silence was once the space where conscience lived, where reflection could correct us before pride could. Without it, the human heart becomes reactive, not reflective. We're caught in a cycle of responding, posting, shouting, not to communicate, but to avoid disappearing. It's the illusion of presence replacing the essence of being. The digital age has given us unlimited voices, but no inner voice. The one that guided, questioned, and connected us to something beyond ourselves has been drowned in the flood of constant noise. What Isaiah described was more than a prophecy. It was a diagnosis of human nature. He saw that when the world began to hear one voice, it would also begin to lose its own. Every new invention meant to bring us closer instead made us louder, and in that volume, the sacred space between thought and speech vanished. We don't pause anymore. We react. We don't listen. We wait to reply. The silence that once healed now terrifies us, because it reminds us of everything we've ignored. And yet, beneath all this noise, there's still something calling. A faint echo that refuses to die no matter how loud the world becomes. You can feel it in those rare moments when you step outside of the storm. When the phone is off, the world is still, and suddenly the silence doesn't feel empty. It feels alive. That's where truth hides now. Not in the chaos of voices, but in the spaces we've abandoned. It's as if the prophecy of Isaiah wasn't about the end of silence, but about the test that would come after it. Because the real challenge isn't that silence died. It is whether we'll ever learn how to resurrect it. And somewhere in that realization lies the heart of what Isaiah saw, a truth that waits patiently for us to rediscover what we were never meant to lose. Isaiah once spoke of mountains and valleys that would one day hear the word, a poetic image that must have seemed impossible in his time. He couldn't have imagined satellites orbiting above those same mountains, transmitting invisible waves that carry messages to every corner of the earth. And yet, here we are. The skies he once looked upon are now filled with signals, voices, images, data, reaching every device, every screen, every heart that chooses to listen. It's as if the heavens themselves became the medium through which humanity speaks. The question is, whose design is this? Is it the divine plan unfolding, or the human desire to imitate creation itself? When you look at the vast network that connects us, the cables beneath the oceans, the towers rising above cities, the unseen frequencies passing through the air, it almost feels biblical. A web of communication so intricate that it mirrors the very pattern of life itself. Some see in it the hand of providence, a tool that could spread light faster than ever before. Others see something else, a tower built of technology instead of stone, reaching not toward heaven, but toward control. Maybe it's both. Maybe the prophecy was never about one or the other, but about the fine line where revelation meets ambition. It is a strange paradox. The same tools that can share the gospel with billions can also spread deception just as quickly. The same system that can unite families across continents can divide nations overnight. Technology doesn't create morality. It amplifies it. It turns whispers into storms and opinions into movements. It shows the world not what it should be, but what it already is, magnified 1,000 times. And perhaps that's what Isaiah saw. Not machines or algorithms, but the moment when human creation would mirror divine creation, when we gain the ability to connect everything, but risk understanding nothing. The truth hidden in this transformation is subtle but powerful. Humanity has always tried to touch the heavens, from the Tower of Babel to the rockets that now pierce the stratosphere. But what if technology is our new attempt at transcendence? What if, in our search for knowledge and mastery, we've built something that looks divine but lacks the soul that gives it meaning? That is the invisible thread running through Isaiah's prophecy. The reminder that imitation without intention leads to illusion. We may have reached the stars, but have we truly understood what we're carrying with us? Every advancement carries a spiritual shadow, a hidden consequence beneath the excitement of discovery. We celebrate connection, but it comes with exposure. We celebrate knowledge, but it comes with noise. The prophets once spoke of revelation descending from above, but today, revelation comes as a notification. It's instant, it's constant, and it often leaves no time to reflect. We've made information infinite, but wisdom finite. The divine voice invites stillness. Technology demands movement. And in between them lies the battlefield of modern faith. Not a war of nations, but of attention. Isaiah's words feel eerily alive in this context. He spoke of a world that would hear one voice, and today, that voice echoes through circuits and satellites, carrying both truth and deception in the same stream. It's both a miracle and a warning, because the moment mankind discovered how to send its voice to the heavens, it also began to drown out the silence where the real answers were found. It's a revelation that hides in plain sight, that the more we connect through machines, the more we must guard the connection within ourselves. This is the unseen cost of progress, the quiet erosion of discernment. The prophets spoke of a day when light would cover the earth as the waters cover the sea. Perhaps that light is knowledge, spreading faster than ever before. But if light travels without truth, it blinds instead of illuminates. And that EOS where Isaiah's ancient vision and our modern reality collide, in the tension between what was meant to awaken us and what now overwhelms us. And maybe that as the mystery hidden behind it all, that every signal we send into the sky, every word carried by invisible waves, is a reflection of something much older. A pattern that began not with machines, but with meaning. And that says where Isaiah's prophecy starts to take on a new dimension. One that forces us to ask whether humanity is fulfilling divine design or simply rehearsing its own imitation of it. It no longer nations or tribes that define the boundaries of our world. It is a single, pulsating network, a digital web that stretches across oceans, mountains, and borders, linking every human voice into what feels like one colossal consciousness. The earth truly speaks with one voice now, just as Isaiah foresaw. But this voice doesn't speak in harmony. It speaks in chaos. It's a chorus of billions, each trying to be louder than the rest, each convinced it carries the truth. The lines between wisdom and noise have vanished. And somewhere in that blur, the loudest voice has quietly become God. What Isaiah warned about feels uncomfortably familiar. He spoke of an age when people would call evil good and good evil, when darkness would masquerade as light and deception would wear the mask of truth. Look around, that time is not approaching, it's already here. The digital voice of humanity has become a living paradox, spreading both enlightenment and confusion, both connection and corruption. In this new reality, perception is truth, and the truth itself struggles to survive. The collective mind of the internet decides what is real, and once it decides, it becomes nearly impossible to change. It's strange how prophecy can sound so poetic until you realize it as describing the world outside your window. The one voice Isaiah saw wasn't the sound of divine unity. It was the sound of the collective human ego, amplified through machines. Every post, every comment, every piece of content adds another layer to this living organism that now shapes culture, politics, even faith. The truth no longer needs to be proven. It just needs to be repeated. And once it's repeated enough, it becomes reality. That's the secret power of this global voice, not its intelligence, but its volume. In a world like this, morality becomes a trend, and conviction becomes currency. The algorithm decides what deserves attention, and we follow as if it were divine will. The loudest opinion becomes law. The quiet truth fades into obscurity. It ease, as though humanity collectively built a mirror that reflects its own desires back at itself. Endlessly, relentlessly, until we can no longer tell the reflection from the real. The danger isn't just misinformation, it is transformation, a slow reshaping of our values until we begin to worship the echo instead of the source. And yet, it's not all darkness. The same voice that spreads confusion also carries fragments of truth, compassion, and awakening. Hidden among the noise are sparks of revelation. Individuals seeking light in a world addicted to shadow. It's the dual nature of this global voice that makes it so powerful. It reveals what we are collectively thinking, feeling, believing, the unfiltered soul of humanity broadcast in real time. But like any soul, it's divided. Part of it reaches upward toward wisdom and understanding, and part of it sinks into vanity and chaos. Isaiah's words now read like a coded description of our age. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, a warning not against nations or empires, but against collective blindness. Because when everyone speaks, but no one listens, truth becomes optional. And when truth is optional, morality becomes negotiable. The result is a civilization that confuses freedom with noise. A world convinced it has found its voice, when in reality, it's only lost its silence. But even here, within this storm of voices, the ancient pattern remains. Every time humanity reaches for power without purpose, it circles back to the same lesson, that the loudest message is not always the most true. The prophets understood that revelation requires quiet, but the modern mind fears quiet more than anything. We've mistaken sound for progress, forgetting that creation itself began with silence before the word was spoken, and perhaps that's what Isaiah wanted us to see all along, that the moment humanity began to speak with one voice, it would have to choose whose words it was truly echoing, the divine voice that brings clarity, or the human one that thrives on confusion. And in that choice lies the fate of every generation that dares to call itself connected. When everyone speaks, no one listens. That is the quiet tragedy of our time. The irony that in a world overflowing with voices, the human soul has never been so silent. We live surrounded by noise yet starved of meaning. The constant vibration of alerts, the endless flow of opinions, the invisible pressure to respond and react. It's like a storm that never ends. And in that storm, something sacred has been drowned out. The noise outside has become the silence inside, the silence where God used to speak. There was a time when people sought solitude to find clarity. Prophets, mystics, thinkers, they all understood that silence wasn't emptiness, it was connection. But now, silence feels unbearable, almost hostile. We've built a world where stillness is mistaken for boredom, and introspection feels like weakness. We scroll to escape our own thoughts, we listen to fill the void, and we speak so we don't have to hear ourselves. But every time we do, we move a little further from that ancient rhythm, the one that allowed the spirit to breathe freely. The most dangerous noise is not what we hear, but what we allow inside. It It's not the notifications or the headlines that truly silence us. It's the constant internal dialogue of comparison, fear, and distraction that grows louder with every moment of disconnection from the divine. We've been taught to measure our worth by visibility, by engagement, by how many echoes answer when we speak. But spiritual depth has no audience. The truth that changes lives is rarely shouted, it's whispered, and those whispers can only be heard in the places we've forgotten to visit, the quiet corners of the heart. This isn't just a technological problem, it's a spiritual condition. Humanity has externalized everything: our identity, our purpose, even our faith. We've traded contemplation for consumption, reflection for reaction. The result is a generation that hears everything yet understands nothing. We've mastered information but lost wisdom. We've built machines that can think but forgotten how to feel. And that's the real battle of this era, not between nations or ideologies, but between noise and meaning, between the constant flood of content and the gentle flow of conscience. Isaiah's warning wasn't just about voices in the world. It was about the battle inside the human soul. The voice of truth doesn't compete. It waits. It doesn't shout to be heard. It invites you to listen. But to hear it, something has to die. The addiction to constant stimulation, the mental clutter that fills every waking moment. Silence is not empty. It's the birthplace of revelation. It's where the unseen begins to take form, where the eternal whispers to the temporary. But we've filled that sacred space with noise so familiar that we no longer recognize it as noise. Think about how often we escape discomfort with distraction. The second the world grows quiet, we reach for a screen, a sound, a scroll, anything to avoid meeting ourselves in silence. Yet, that's exactly where the transformation begins. The truth we seek in data and devices is waiting behind the stillness we fear. The prophets understood this. They withdrew from the world not to abandon it, but to hear it more clearly. And maybe that's what's missing now. Not divine revelation, but our ability to receive it. The real impact of this constant connection is internal. It shapes our mentality, our decisions, even our emotions. When everything is urgent, nothing is sacred. When everything speaks, nothing resonates. We've mistaken noise for importance and volume for truth. And so the soul grows quieter. Not at peace, but numb. That is the hidden cost of the world Isaiah foresaw. The moment when the earth could hear every voice, but the human heart could no longer hear its own. And yet, within that silence lies a spark, a reminder that the voice of God has not vanished. It has simply been muted by choice. To find it again, we don't need to escape the world, only to pause within it, to reclaim a space where listening becomes sacred again. Because only in that kind of stillness can we begin to discern the difference between the world's noise and the whisper that still calls us home. Isaiah's message was never meant to be read as a prediction of disaster. It was a call to remember. Beneath every warning, there was always an invitation to return, to listen, to find the one voice that never changes. His prophecy was not just about what would happen to the world, but about what would happen inside us when the world became too loud, when the noise of humanity grew so constant that the sound of truth could no longer break through. When the world is filled with voices, Isaiah might say if he were here today, seek the one that never changes. That is the essence of discernment. Not just knowing what is true, but recognizing who is speaking. Every day we're surrounded by voices that claim authority. Experts, influencers, leaders, machines. Each one competing for belief. Each one promising certainty. But the real voice of wisdom doesn't compete. It remains steady, quiet, timeless. It doesn't demand to be followed. It invites you to remember. Isaiah understood that this was the heart of faith. Not blind obedience, but the ability to distinguish what is eternal from what is temporary. And in an age when everything changes faster than thought, that ability has become sacred. It's easy to get lost in the flood of modern revelation, the constant updates, the headlines, the digital prophets of our era. They speak in numbers, in data, in emotion, but faith was never built on noise. It was built on stillness, on learning to hear beyond what's being said. The truth is that discernment is not a skill. It's a posture. It's a mentalidad, a way of seeing the world that looks for consistency where chaos reigns. It's choosing to pause before reacting, to seek before speaking, to listen before believing. And that discipline, that inner listening, is what Isaiah was trying to preserve. The danger of our age isn't that we can't find the truth, it's that we no longer have the patience to recognize it. We live in a world that rewards immediacy, not accuracy, emotion, not reflection. Every second, the digital current pulls us further downstream, convincing us that speed equals progress. But wisdom has never rushed. Truth has never shouted. The voice of God has never competed for attention. It waits for silence. And that is where discernment begins, in the willingness to slow down long enough to separate the eternal from the echo. Faith, in its purest form, isn't about religion or ritual. It is about anchoring yourself to something that doesn't shift with trends or timelines. In a world that's constantly reinventing its own morality, faith becomes rebellion. It's the decision to believe in something constant, even when everything else demands movement. Isaiah's call wasn't just to believe in God. It was to recognize Him amid the noise, to see the difference between light and the imitation of it, between revelation and manipulation, between what feels true and what is true. And that's the hard part, because the imitation looks convincing. The false voice sounds comforting. It tells you what you want to hear, and that's what makes it dangerous. The truth, on the other hand, doesn't flatter. It frees. It doesn't promise comfort. It promises clarity. That's why Isaiah's message still cuts through the centuries, because it demands transformation, not transaction. It calls us to think differently, to choose differently, to reclaim the lost art of listening with the soul, not just the ears. There is a reason silence is so rare in the modern world. It is because silence exposes what's real. It removes the layers of noise that keep us comfortable and forces us to confront what we've been avoiding. But once we step into that silence, the confusion begins to fade. The thousands of voices lose their grip, and what remains is simple, powerful, constant, the one voice that never changes. It's not found in systems or devices or trends. It's found in moments of awareness when the heart finally stops running long enough to hear again. And maybe that's the journey Isaiah wanted us to take. Not to escape the world, but to learn how to stand within it without being consumed. To recognize that in the midst of billions of voices, there's still one that calls quietly, consistently, waiting to be remembered. Because finding that voice is not just a matter of faith, it is the beginning of transformation. And every time we choose to listen to it, something inside us begins to awaken again, guiding us through the noise toward what truly lasts. Isaiah saw the future, and now we are standing inside it. The silence he once knew, the space where revelation used to breathe, has been replaced by the constant murmur of connection. Every thought, every belief, every fragment of opinion travels at the speed of light, shaping our reality before we have the chance to question it. The death of silence wasn't the end of sound. It was the beginning of confusion. A confusion so subtle it disguises itself as clarity, feeding us the illusion of understanding while slowly numbing our capacity to truly listen. The prophecy was never about destruction. It was about distraction, about a humanity so entranced by its own voice that it forgets the one who gave it. Isaiah's words echo through the centuries, more relevant now than ever. Seek the voice that never changes. In a time when everything speaks, that single constancy becomes the compass. Because when truth becomes subjective, When faith turns into data, and when identity is curated like content, the soul begins to fracture. We stop living from conviction and start living from reaction. That's the hidden cost of our age, not chaos outside, but confusion within. It's not that God stopped speaking. It's that the frequency of His voice is drowned in frequencies we created ourselves. Every generation faces its own test of discernment, and ours is built on speed. The faster we move, the more we risk mistaking motion for meaning. But deep within that noise, the ancient question still lingers. Whose voice are you listening to? The world tells us to trust the loudest, to follow the most visible, to measure truth by applause. But the real revelation is quieter. It unfolds in reflection, in the pauses we no longer take. Isaiah's vision wasn't just a glimpse of the end. It was a reminder of beginnings, that even in a world overflowing with words, transformation still starts in silence. And maybe that is the hidden truth behind his prophecy, that the end of silence was never meant to be final. It was meant to awaken us, to make us realize that amidst all the noise, the eternal voice still waits to be heard. The same one that spoke to Isaiah beneath the ancient skies still speaks now, unchanged, unmoved, unwavering. The only question left, the one that echoes through every generation, is the same one he left behind. Whose voice will define your journey? If you're still here, it probably means something in this message spoke to you. Maybe not just as an idea, but as a reminder of something deeper you've always known. That's the kind of reflection this channel was made for. So if this journey through Isaiah's prophecy made you pause, or helped you see the world from a different angle, consider subscribing. It's a small gesture, but it helps keep these conversations alive. Real spaces of thought in the middle of all the noise. Leave a comment below and write, "I heard the silence, so I'll know you made it to the end." I read every single one, and they're a quiet way for us to keep this dialogue going beyond the screen. And if this video resonated with you, a simple like helps this message reach more people who might need to hear it too. There's another video right here that continues this reflection. It dives even deeper into what S behind the words of the prophets. Click on it and come with me. Let's keep walking through the revelations that are shaping our time.